Clock on the dot. We have a quorum established, so I'm going to call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone in the audience to the Planning Commission. This is our September 16th meeting. So I'd like to get, Terry Jackson's going to lead us in our prayer today, and after that we're going to get Mr. Self is going to lead us in our pledges.
Please rise. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, thank you for the promise of a beautiful day today, and please be with everyone here that's in attendance and with the Commission. Help us to do your will and be with the Commission as we make decisions that will affect our city, and help us to make good decisions for each individual problem or occurrence that comes up today. And just watch over us and help us in our daily lives. Thank you for letting us be born and live in the United States, where we have a lot of freedom, the state of Texas and San Angelo and Tom Green County. Just watch over us, help us do your will, and thank you for your blessings. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag. Okay, I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. So the Commission may request for a consent agenda item to be moved to a regular agenda for presentation and public comment. Otherwise, the consent agenda will be considered in one vote, including the minutes from the last meeting. So I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
A motion to approve.
Yes.
And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carries. We'll move on to the regular agenda. This is subdivision plats. The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Any appeals may be directed to the City Council. Move on to item A, the Duran, I believe it's Duran, maybe Duran West Edition. Request for approval of a final plat of Duran West Edition and one variance from Chapter 10-3A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain an existing paving width of 36 feet with an existing stand-up curb in lieu of 40 feet on West 37th Street, an urban local being 2.426 acres, generally located west of the intersection of Grape Creek Road and 37th. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Sherry Bailey, and I'm a principal planner here in San Angelo. As you indicated, Duran West Edition is our first plat. It is a final plat. It contains 2.426 acres, and it's about at 250 West 37th Street. The zoning there is rural and estate, or ranch and estate, and the future land use on that is rural. It's in District 2, Mr. Thompson's district, and the neighborhood is the Riverside neighborhood. Before you is the proposed plat. It's one large parcel. It is 230 feet on the frontage, and the applicant is dividing it into Lot 1 and Lot 2. It did go to the Zoning Board of Adjustment on the 5th of August, and it received approval for 115 foot of frontage to be divided equally between those two lots. So each lot is 115 feet, which makes up the 230 feet. The reason that the Zoning Board of Adjustment did grant that is because this is the largest lot that was within that block. All of the rest of the lots are at either 1 acre or a little less, and their frontage in most cases did not meet the required 150-foot front that's required for the lot in that zone. And so the zoning ZBA board approved the 115 feet. I have Pictures before you of the property in question, and also so that you can see the existing street and the stand-up curb. They are asking a variance, as was indicated on the widening that street and the paving. The rationale for approval here, the applicant's requesting a final plat in creating 2 lots in the R and E, and the resulting lots will be over the 1 acre minimum requirement. It'll be 1.25 each. The proposed final plat will provide direct and abutting access onto West 37th. It will assist in guiding the future growth and development of the city, and it is in keeping with that area to the north of San Angelo, and it helps to ensure that property boundaries are created and established with a recorded plat. Staff is recommending that you approve the final plat of Durand West Addition, and you approve the variance that they have asked for, with 3 conditions: that the copy of the tax certificate being passed on to the city, that they are required to install the water and wastewater service lines to each lot, and that the 3rd item is the one that they're asking a variance on, which is to improve West 37th. And they will either submit a financial guarantee to expand that, or you will grant a variance. Are there any questions?
You all have any questions on that? No. Do I have any public comment on this? With no questions and no public comment, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Yep.
Thank you. Moving on to item B, a replat of replat of the east 40 feet of lot 7 and all 8 lots and all lots 8 through 10, block 22, Lasker's addition. A request for approval of a replat of the east 40 feet of lot 7 and all of lots 8 through 10, block 22, Lasker's addition, and 1 variance from chapter 10, 3A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to maintain an existing paving width of 56 feet in lieu of the required 64 feet on North Chadbourn, an urban arterial street being 0.611 acres, generally located at the southwest corner of the intersection of North Chadbourn Street and West 18th. Good morning again.
Good morning. Before you is the request for Lasker's addition, a replat. And as you can see from the picture, the property presently is divided into lots that run what I would call kind of north and south, in keeping with Chadbourn. But both lots have frontage onto Chadbourn. There's 1 commercial piece of property, and then there is a residential piece of property that's on the other half of the lot. They are hoping to replat that with the commercial piece, which is in red, having the 5-foot side yard requirement that is necessary and the backyard requirement that is necessary, and parking for their building on there, and then the remainder would be with the residential piece of property. Now, in this case, the entire area is 0.611 acre of an acre. It's on North Chadbourn and West 18th. The zoning there is CGCH, and the back 40 feet is the RS1. But since the use is for residential, that will continue. The future land use is neighborhood center. The district, in this case, is District 4, Lucy Gonzalez's district, and it is the Reagan neighborhood. Before you is the proposed plats. As you can see, it will be Lot 10A, which is the larger lot, the present residential use, and then Lot 10B, which is the commercial lot with the parking in the back. The variance that they are requesting is to allow North Chadbourne Street to maintain its existing feet of frontage. As far as the pavement is concerned, normally we would require 64 feet, but obviously North Chadbourne was a state highway. It's no longer used that way, but it is more than sufficient. It has developed out. It's more than sufficient to handle the traffic on North Chadbourne. This is a picture of both of the buildings in question, the commercial again on the left, the Rock House on the right. The rationale for approving the request in this case: nothing is proposed to change. The commercial will stay commercial, the residential will stay residential. The mix of uses has continued for over 40 years. The CGCH zoning has provided for flexibility in this case and will continue. The plat provides for the orderly, safe, and efficient development of the city. The plat also provides a systematic and accurate record of land development. In looking at the rationale for for the variance and not having them to widen the street and improve it to the 64 feet, it's not detrimental to public safety. The street functions in its current condition, and it is recommended by both planning and engineering that the variance be granted. And it's unique in this case. This is a small infill project in the existing neighborhood, and it will continue as it has been. There is no hardship created in this case, since their existing street widths and configuration already handles the traffic. It does not vary with any other provisions. There's granting variances would not handicap any or affect any of the other properties in this case, and the existing street is adequate, and having to widen it would actually make traffic and confusing at best. So staff is recommending approval of the replat of the east 40 feet of Lot 7 and all of Lots 8 through 10, Block 22, Lasker's Addition, and that we are also recommending approval of the variance from Chapter 10-3-A-2. We have one condition of approval, and that's prior to plat recordation, that they are to provide the tax certificate for that. Are there any questions?
Anybody have any questions for staff? This one seems like a pretty good cleanup. It for sure fits the area. I just had one. It's not a concern anymore because you covered it. I was a little bit concerned when I went out to the site visit, the commercial next door, but obviously it's perfectly fine, right? So
Yeah, it's been that way for a very long time.
in the event that's good, so we're changing specifically this one property, and we're not going to affect in the future, and I understand it's understood now. So at the time, that was going to be my only question. So thanks for being so clear. Do I have any public comment on this? All right. Without any public comment, I will close it and open it up for a motion.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to item C, a preliminary plat, Houston Hart Commercial Park, western part. A request for approval of a preliminary plat, Houston Hart Commercial Park. The western part being 4.223 acres, generally located south of the intersection of TLC Way and Glenna Street. Good morning.
Good morning. We'll actually be taking both C and D together. So
You want
if
me
you
to
don't
read
mind.
D in?
Yes, sir, please.
Okay. Houston Hart Commercial Park, Section 6, a request for approval of a final plat, Houston Hart Commercial Park, Section 6, and one variance from the Chapter 10-3A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to allow Glenna Street, an urban arterial street, to maintain a 48-foot pavement width in lieu of the required 64 feet, being 1.498 acres generally located south of the intersection of TLC Way and Glenna Street. Good morning again.
Good morning. Hillary Bucher, Planning Manager. We're going to present both these cases together as they're directly related. We're looking at Houston Hart Commercial Park. The preliminary plat is labeled western part. The final plat is labeled section 6. The total acreage of the entire project is 4.223 acres. The final platted portion will be approximately 1.5, as you can see there. We're looking at the corner of Glenna Street and TLC Way. The current zoning is CGCH with a commercial flu. It's in District 5, Carter's, in the Bluffs neighborhood. If you'll look on the aerial here, you'll see the red outline encompasses the preliminary plat, and the black dash actually delineates the final plat. So this is the proposed preliminary plat, and it's unplatted land being divided into 2 lots. And then the proposed final plat is the finalization of that northern lot. They're also requesting a variance from Chapter 10.3A2 to allow Glenna to remain 48 foot in lieu of the required 64 feet. We are recommending approval of both the preliminary and the final plat. The CGCH zoning will allow for commercial uses consistent with the future land use, and it's a continuation of the existing development along Glenna. It is conforming with the intent of purpose statements. The additional lots will accommodate new commercial and allow for orderly development. The approved preliminary plat will allow for recording of the final plat and provide for systematic and accurate recordation of land development. So we are recommending approval of the variance from Chapter 10.3A2, and I have a couple of examples here of why we are recommending approval. It's not detrimental to the public safety. The street functions in its current condition. This section of Glenna is actually directly south of a TxDOT bridge, which is at full capacity with the existing lanes. So widening this street would then narrow back down at the bridge. Another reason would be the current CIP that's proposed north of this bridge does not propose to widen Glenna. So we have 2 factors here that say Glenna is probably functioning at its capacity and will in the future. This is a small infill project which would create uniqueness. The existing streets and the configuration already sufficiently service the area, and granting this variance would not vary any other provisions. So staff is recommending approval of the preliminary plat for Houston Hart Park western part, approval of the final plat of Houston Hart Commercial Park Section 6, and approval of the variance from Chapter 10.3A2 of the subdivision ordinance, subject to 4 conditions of approval. Condition number 1 is a copy of the tax certificate. 2 is improve Glenna or seek a variance as they are doing today. 3 would be submit a drainage study and construct the necessary improvements. 4 is design and install sewer main lines and service connections or submit the financial guarantee. Does anyone have any questions?
Anyone have any questions on this case? Do not.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this case? Not any public comment. I will entertain. I'm sorry. There he is, Mr. Cullen. All these staff recommended approvals. I didn't think we'd see you today. It's your lucky day.
I just had to,
It's
I
your
just have to
lucky
get
day,
up
man.
here. I can't help it. Russell with SKG Engineering. Thanks for staff for working with us on this. We would ask for your approval of the variance as staff has recommended for the street width, and then ask if we could defer the drainage study for the final plat of Section 1. That's tract is over 1 acre in size, so that would be a requirement of a building permit anyway. And then also defer the water and sewer services since it's already commercial. The utilities, the water and sewer mains in place. There's a sewer main kind of across TLC that we've got to reach to, so we're kind of studying that on how the building sits and sites and elevations and stuff. So we just asked if we could just defer those to the building permitting phase, and be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with that. If Hillary and Company, do y'all have a problem with either of those 2 requests?
I think we could accomplish both of those with the building permit phase.
Okay, good. Any more public comment? All right. I will entertain a motion. We need to ensure that that motion has,
I'll make a motion to approve with the requested variance, or with the requested
deferments.
deferment, yes.
Do we need 2 motions?
Yeah, do y'all want, I'm sorry, Dan, you want to?
Clarify that your motion is for both of the
Yes.
and E
Motion
on
is
the
for
agenda.
both cases.
With both the requested deferments, right? Okay. Okay, so I do have a motion to approve as presented with the added deferments. Do I have a second? Second. And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed. Motion carries. 5-0. Moving on, item F, the first replat of Track C, the Bluffs Edition. I did?
We did C and D.
Oh, we did C and D.
Yes, sir.
Oh. Moving back to item E. I was trying to get us out of here early. Replat of south part of Lot 1, Block 7, Ratliff Edition. A request for approval of the replat of the south part of Lot 1, Block 7. I'm not even sure what that SB is. Ratliff Edition, and 2 variances from Chapter 10, 3A2 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance. To maintain a minimum paving width of 30 feet, no curb and gutter in lieu of the required 50 feet for Lake Drive and Urban Collector. And to maintain a paving width of 36 feet with existing curb and gutter in lieu of the required 40 feet for West 34th and Urban Local, being 0.801 acres generally located the northeast corner of Lake Drive and West 34th. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, Principal Planner. This is a replat of the south part of Lot 1, Block 7 in the SB Ratliff Edition. It's one lot being platted into 3. I'll show you in a minute. There's an existing home on the south lot, and the replat of the north 2 lots would allow single-family homes on those 2 lots as well. It's 0.801 acres, Lake Drive and West 34th Street. The zoning is RS1, and the future land use is neighborhood, District 2, Thompson, Riverside neighborhood. So the current subdivision is all of that. 1A's got a home on it. The new lots will be 1B and 1C to allow single-family homes. So in essence, if this is approved, there could be 2 new single-family homes in that area. The applicant is requesting 2 variances from the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to allow Lake Drive to remain 30 feet in lieu of the required 50 feet with no curb and gutter as a collector, and for West 34th Street to remain 36 feet in lieu of 40 feet as a local road, and that does have curb and gutter. Staff is supporting the request for the plat and the variances. On the plat, we believe that it conforms with the comprehensive plan. The zoning RS1 is consistent with neighborhood, which supports single-family housing in this area. The layout will conform to the existing street patterns. The 2 new lots will have frontage onto Lake Drive. We also believe it will conform with the intent of purpose statements, Chapter 2 of the subdivision ordinance. The replatting of the lots will match the configuration of the adjacent lots and ensure safe vehicular and pedestrian circulation. A rationale to support the variances, we don't believe granting the variances would be detrimental. The majority of lots were already built out in this area. There was a 2018 variance you all approved just a little bit to the south on Lake Drive for the same thing. Grape Creek, which is over to the east, is also a collector and has 4 times the amount of traffic from the last TxDOT counts. And so Lake Drive, even though it's a collector, acts more as a local road. And so allowing the existing pavement, we do not believe would be detrimental. The streets in the area have also remained deficient as far back as we researched, and the existing area has all of the lots are predominantly built out already. Even if they replatted a few, there wouldn't be too much more room for housing. So we don't believe the 2 additional lots would create any drain on the existing traffic network. It would create a hardship, though, if they had to, particularly on West 34th Street, ripping up the existing curb just for 1 feet of pavement, we don't believe would really service the neighborhood. And all the lots will comply with the RS1 standards. 17 notices were mailed out. We did receive 1 letter in opposition I've provided to you this morning. One of the residents immediately to the south, just concerns about traffic, and that was all. These are some of the photographs in the areas you can see. There is a paved shoulder here, Caliche Shoulder on Lake Drive. And this is looking at the existing home. So staff recommends approval of a replat of the south part of Lot 1, Block 7, SB Ratliff Addition, approval of the variance from 10382 of the subdivision ordinance to allow minimum paving width of 30 feet with no curb and gutter for Lake Drive and Urban Collector Street, and approval of a variance from Chapter 10382 of the subdivision ordinance to allow minimum paving width of 36 feet with curb and gutter for West 34th Street and Urban Local Street, subject to 4 conditions of approval. And this concludes staff's presentation. Here's a quick summary of the conditions: tax certificate, improve Lake Drive or seek a variance, improve West 34th Street or seek a variance, and install water service lines to each lot.
Thank you, Jeff. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this case?
So what is the actual width of the street right now? Or is it
Width of the
36
street?
or 30?
So Lake Drive is 30 feet and would normally have to be 50, but again, we believe it acts more as a local. West 34th Street is 36 feet instead of 40.
Okay, 34th, okay.
Anyone else? Do I have any public comment? Okay. Without any public comment, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
A motion to approve as presented. Have a second? And I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Thank you, Jeff. Can I go to F now? Moving on to item F.
Go to G.
First replat of Track C, the Bluffs Addition, Section 22. A request for approval of the first replat of Track C, the Bluffs Addition, Section 22, and 3 variances from Chapter 9.5 of the Land Development and Subdivision Ordinance to exempt the requirement for sidewalks along Weston Road, Arden Road, and Hunter's Glen being 5.15 acres, generally located south of Arden Road between Weston and Hunter's Glen. Mr. Fisher again.
So this is the first replat of Track C, the Bluffs Addition, Section 22. It's immediately south of Arden Road between Weston and Hunter's Glen, District 6, Billy DeWitt in the Bluffs neighborhood. The current zoning on the properties are CG and RS1. So what they're doing is they're taking this one lot and platting it into 4 lots. The 3 lots to the north, which are zoned CG, will be for future commercial development, and the property to the south, which is RS1, will remain open space. They're also requesting 3 variances. The Planning Division under Chapter 9.5 is requesting sidewalks along Arden, Weston, and Hunter's Glen, and so they're asking for variances on all 3 sidewalk requests. This is the governing preliminary plat that was done, and you can see that the lot configuration, the proposed development will fit neatly into this area. The 3 lots to the north are in that commercial tract C, and then the area to the south, it's hard to tell because I've shown the outline boundary, but that open space block continues into here. So that is, we believe that's pretty clear, consistent with the preliminary plat. Staff supports the approval of the subdivision plat. We believe it conforms with the comprehensive plan designation neighborhood center. Neighborhood center talks about providing shopping needs within half a mile. As you go further south of that plat, you've got the Rivercrest facility to the southeast, but everything else is residential. And so this would allow residents to be able to essentially, with the sidewalk installations, be able to walk to any future commercial development in that area. And for those reasons, we also believe it conforms to the intent of purpose statements. The sidewalk installations will ensure public health, safety, and welfare, safe, efficient development, and the lots themselves are efficient layout and match the preliminary plat. Staff supports the sidewalk. Staff requires sidewalks for the following reasons, so it does not support the variances. We believe that not having sidewalks here would be detrimental. The sidewalks will provide and serve pedestrian connectivity to commercial development. There are no sidewalks in the area, but it's the same argument we've discussed before. If we don't start the sidewalks now, and we won't get them at all. And so we believe that that's appropriate in the area. Also, I researched, there's no retail properties within a half a mile of this area, so this really would be a good area for neighborhood commercial. with that CG zoning, they could do a lot of different things. But even if one of those 4 lots are going to help that area or even the immediate area to drive to, we believe that would help. We don't believe there's any uniqueness here for not putting in sidewalks. There is a drainage ditch. I'll show you some photos in a minute along Arden Road, but they could move that sidewalk back even if they need to put it on private property with an easement, that's doable. So we believe there would be an inconvenience with the drainage ditch, but it does not go as far as a hardship. And the variance is based on public safety. The applicant had mentioned about the streets being wider than 40 feet. As you know, there's 2 sections of the subdivision ordinance where we can require a sidewalk. So if the streets if they're not local streets, or if they're locals more than 40, if they're less than 40, we can acquire it. The numeric standard would require it under Chapter 10. In this case, we can also get it under Chapter 9 if we believe that it's either a safe schools route or there's heavy anticipated pedestrian traffic in the area. So we believe that while there isn't a requirement under Chapter 10, there's still one under Chapter 9, the public safety sidewalk. 50 notifications were mailed out. We did receive 1 in favor from number 12 in this area here. So this is looking, we just want to take a few pictures quickly to show you how this looks in reality. This is the view from Hunter's Glen. So most of it is pretty flat grade on the east side of the properties, but that drainage ditch starts there. And then we go down Arden Road, you can see in the public right-of-way with those electrical poles and that drainage ditch. But again, the applicant could put the sidewalk further back on private property. So that's Arden Road. And then on the Weston Road side, there is a significant slope. I wouldn't say super slope, but it does kind of go up here as you go further south. Again, with ADA standards and things, the applicant probably could make that work and just meet whatever requirements are for slope in that section there. And that's the open space lot to the back that won't be developed. So staff recommends approval of the replat of Tract C, the Bluffs Addition, Section 22, but denial of all 3 variances from Chapter 9.5 and requires sidewalks adjacent to Weston Road, Arden Road, and Hunter's Glen Road, subject to the 4 conditions of approval. Copy of the tax certificate, drainage study prior to plat recordation, installation of the water services to the lots, and my apology, that should be 3 conditions. We moved the sidewalk comment to a note because we believe that would be required. We can do that prior to building permit, so I've just indicated that on there. They could have until now and get the plat recorded first and then put in the sidewalks later. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, so this one in particular, when we received these reports and I was going over them, in full disclosure, I live there. This one, I kind of went back and forth a lot, right? But I think that it is, when you look at variances, right, and I'm a sidewalk guy, I've been up here for 4 years preaching we need sidewalks, right? If it wasn't for sidewalks, I wouldn't be alive. So when I look at sidewalks to nowhere, right, you kind of have to weigh, does it make sense? But when I think about the Bluffs, in and of just the Bluffs area, now mind you, Hunter's Glen and Weston are on the complete opposite side of where we all worked on the HEB and everything else that's going on. But the fact of the matter is there is a lot of new construction going on around the Bluffs. And it is our job to make decisions for tomorrow and forward, and not just for what is going on. Again, it's my opinion, but it's going to take one heck of a salesman to talk me out of sidewalks on this case. You have a prime opportunity for a subdivision that is very popular, that has lots of folks, all different ages, lots of kiddos, all different ages. And this is a prime opportunity with all this new construction to finally get some sidewalks around there. So I'd be hard-pressed to be talked out of it, but there's 4 more people that can be against me. So with that, what do y'all think?
I would actually like to add one more comment as well. I spoke to a representative from TxDOT, and again, I want to reinforce kind of what Lance said at the last meeting. on any of their roadways. They are very supportive of sidewalks and sidewalk construction. That would be Arden Road in this case. So they wanted to make sure that their support was at least presented to, with this case, that they are looking to do sidewalk improvements throughout town, and every piece helps them get toward their goal.
I'm in agreement with so much commercial development around the bluffs here recently. I think it's a great idea, just for safety in general. I think it's crazy that San Angelo tore out so many sidewalks in residential neighborhoods in the past.
Terry, comment?
I was going to wait for public comment. I'll be happy to, though. I'm one of those that's on the fence sometimes, but I think on this one, I think it would be good to have the sidewalks there with the commercial, with the traffic that is on Arden Road in that area. I think it would be very beneficial.
All right, I will open it up to public comment. Mr. Gully, good morning.
Good morning, Russell with SKG. Wait, go back. Sorry, go back, somebody. The one prior to that, maybe. We're on the fence about the sidewalk too, and staff is kind of, we're deferring this discussion, I think, kind of down the road. Our concern, where do you put a sidewalk here? We're gonna wash people out. So, or do we move it back along outside of that? Yes, maybe. Or how about whenever the site plan comes in and staff's kind of on board with this of deferring that discussion, and where do we actually put that sidewalk once we know how the site's going to develop out? Because we've done some concept layouts of the site, kind of what we would envision would be a row of parking spaces in front, kind of paralleling Arden Road, and then 3 kind of commercial buildings set back along there and facing Arden Road. And so our thought would be the sidewalk maybe is best placed up between the building and the parking spaces, because across Arden Road is the state park and floodplain. So it's not going to develop. We're not going to have a lot of commercial, nothing's going over there. We're not going to have the buffalo coming across the fence and walking down our sidewalk. I guess to the west, it's kind of going uphill and floodplain, so there's not going to be a whole lot of people moving, I guess, east-west along Arden Road. It's just not. You look at the nature of it, it's just not. You're going to not have a large amount of pedestrian traffic moving east-west. You go further to the east, and we're back down in the Red Arroyo, Rivercrest. I don't think they let their people out for walks, and they don't let them out to the public, so it's really not just this area. We're just not going to see a large amounts of pedestrian traffic. Now, coming from behind us, sure, potentially, yes. We'll have people walking down the neighborhood or their bike or whatever, coming into this commercial area. So are the sidewalks maybe best coming down the streets to the side and then coming in and being right up close to the buildings? Yeah, absolutely, and we would be all for that. So I think we can maybe kind of have some common ground. We do see the need for sidewalks, but this is not the busy corridor of Sherwood Way that you have all kind of commercial and activity. And really, in reading section 9 of the chapter of the subdivision ordinance, we're not on a school route, and we don't have major shopping areas. This is not a major shopping area. This is not an HEB. This is not big enough to turn into that. So really, I don't know that, I believe staff has a little reach on that one, saying that they can require it under chapter 9, section 5. But we're okay with having continuing discussion with staff when the building plans come in. So we're deferring that. So I don't know that you guys have to decide on that one, because I think we're deferring that discussion. But we would like to see about deferring the drainage study to the building permitting phase and the water and sewer services to the building permitting phase, because the mains are in place. We just, at this point, we don't know the tap size or location for those lots. So So that was kind of a long diatribe on not a whole lot, but would like
You've
your
already
thoughts.
been in discussion with the planning department about the sidewalks and making a decision at a later time?
Yes, Hillary and I had a lovely discussion about sidewalks, and so.
So, John and Dan and Hillary, I get
At
it.
this point,
But I think that you'd be hard pressed just by the comments that were made up here with that this thing is going to go away without sidewalks. But let me ask it this way. I think there could be some common ground. How do we, without tabling this entire thing and holding up progress, which I also hate to do, how can we work together? Let me tell you what I want, and then you tell me how we word it, or if we can even do it, right? So if we can see some plans, right? So Russell and company are not completely against the sidewalks. They're against where they would have to go at this moment in time, correct? Is there a way to move forward with this case and not hold up the progress and see the plans, what they would do with the sidewalks at a later time, and grant those variances then, or not grant them? In other words, I want to move forward so they can start work and do what they need to do, but we want to see the sidewalk proposed to us. How and can we do that?
I think the short answer is no, because there's no future point in the process where you all see anything.
Gotcha.
You
Can the commission give
got it.
authority to staff to approve based on our recommendations?
You do have an option for a guarantee.
Okay.
And that can be for up to 3 years. But right now, the ordinance, I think, was recently amended, but the last ordinance was 18 months with an extension for up to 3 years. And I think if the city council passed the last amendment, that it could start out with a full 3 years. And as far as if the guarantee is there and you stated that it would be pursuant to a site plan that's approved for building permits, that would not go back to you for another independent decision. At some point, you would be saying that sidewalk has to go in.
Right.
The location and all of that could be tied into the site plan.
You know, when Russell talks about the sidewalks and going through the parking lot, and I'm picturing it in my mind. It would be a heck of a lot easier if I saw, you know,
Well, and-
if that was what would that look
Russell
like?
just kind of drew something up, and we've looked at it. Again, it's just to give you a little bit of level of comfort that we're working with them.
But is
I
it
mean,
a
we're gonna have
sidewalk,
to-
or is it just an entrance way acting like a
No,
sidewalk for
let me,
customers?
I'll do this first, and then I'll walk it around to you. But what he's proposing is to come up Weston Road and Hunter's Glen, but then the sidewalk that would be on Arden Road just come across in front of the buildings. It would serve the people that are coming from the neighborhoods going to the buildings. It wouldn't necessarily serve if you're just walking along Arden Road for some reason. But I think that was, to Russell's point, that the majority of traffic he foresees in this project would be coming from the neighborhood to come to these
Yeah, and
individual businesses. So I'll pass this around and you guys can take a look.
And you guys have been so gracious to defer sidewalks on a lot of the commercial projects. And so I think that's kind of what we're doing today. So I believe we can work with staff and come up with, and it's even staff's recommendation to defer the sidewalks. And we do it a lot on commercial. So if we require it as part of the plat, then they just post a financial guarantee as Dan was referring to. But in a lot of cases, because staff has kind of the teeth to require it at the building permitting phase, they get it there too.
No, and I like the idea Here it is. We don't know what's going to happen with future development along Arden Road. We just don't know, right? So what happens between Hunter's Glen 10 years from now, from Hunter's Glen to, what is that, 2288? Is that what that's called, 2288?
Yeah.
So what happens going down there? We don't know. If you were sitting here 20 years ago, would you think there would be an H-E-B and a Chick-fil-A on that corner? No one would have ever thought that 20 years ago. I wasn't here, but I would imagine.
Right, anything's possible, and really as we continue west down Arden Road, we have a large kind of hill here that would, and I don't know, some of that is part of open space platted on a plat, so nothing's going to happen. If you look back at some of your exhibits, you can see that that's already platted as open space, so that's not going away or going to change. And then once we get up to 2288 in Arden Road, that's a huge floodplain, floodway area that people have been trying to figure out how to develop it, and it's outrageously expensive to bring in fill and do all the FEMA models to make that corner on our side of Arden Road developable. So sure, anything's likely possible in the future. How much is going to continue back east? Well, there again, we have a lot of floodplain and the Jim Bass Ford area way back there. But if someone's moving long ways along Arden Road, they come to our tract at Hunter's Glen, well, they just have to walk 60 feet to the south, get on our sidewalk, walk across the front of our buildings, and then they move back down and continue on to the west down Arden Road. Is TxDOT going to do sidewalks on Arden Road? There's probably a whole lot more higher priorities need than that. So Joe, I respect and appreciate your concern and need for sidewalks. We're just kind of trying to find a balance of what's a reasonably kind of time frame and how this develops and where a sidewalk goes.
Well, and I think by deferring it, you allow staff to kind of look at it as we go. Because, again, if we redo the parking or the building scoots or does something, it allows us the flexibility to kind of work with the developer on the site plan to say, can we push it a little bit toward the building, or does it need to go a little bit closer to the road? Because originally our thought was it would kind of run right behind this drainage ditch. That was the staff thought, that we wouldn't have it in the middle here, we would run it right behind these telephone poles. So by deferring it to building permit phase, staff would have the ability to work with the developer to decide where is the best location outside of the drainage to service the buildings, to service the general public, and to produce the best possible product.
And we're, at this point, we're representing the seller of the land. And so he's just trying to keep as much flexibility as he can to be able to sell it. Someone may come by one or all three of these, and they may be perfectly happy or even want sidewalks along Arden Road, and it's a non-issue. He may put them at Arden Road and up against his building. So we'll know more. This is just kind of keeping it flexible, if you will. And I think by the deferring it to the building permitting phase, that affords us that opportunity. So I guess the sidewalk issue is deferred. We're okay and good with that, and then we just asked you to be able to defer the drainage study and the water and sewer services.
All right, thank you. Do I have any public comment on this? All right. I'm good. I'm good with that. As long as deferring it is not killing it, then I'm fine with it. But again, I'm one vote, right? So I think that staff needs an extra or two opportunities to revisit this down the road and not just give the variance and move on and then we never see them. I do agree that it's a unique situation, and Russell, everything he said is correct. I would just like to see a little more discussion rather than just granting the variances and moving on down the road. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, and let me just clarify, I don't think we're suggesting you approve the variances, but instead you allow the sidewalks to be deferred.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. If
Okay,
you were to
I'll
approve the
make,
variances, they wouldn't have to do the sidewalks at all. Yeah.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can we see the 4 conditions of approval again, please? Basically, they're asking for deferment of 2, 3, and the note. And so all that they need to show right now is a copy of the tax certificate.
And I guess that because we said the sidewalks were a note, then I don't know if y'all have to do anything. You just have to agree that to not support the variances and thereby require the sidewalk. And I think it's set up this way already. Because we've essentially, by making it a note and not a condition, I think we've already allowed that flexibility. And we've done this, I think, with the Honda dealership as well, and another subdivision where we had deferred.
We just need, and to do, even though it's deferred here, we still need to deny the variances. So
Right,
that
you still need the denial on record.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve with the denial of the variances and the deferment of the drainage study and as requested. And the water and sewer.
2 and 3.
And deferral of the sidewalks as well.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah, as recommended.
You want to state that motion again?
So I make a motion to approve with the deferral of the sidewalks and the holding off on the drainage study and the water lines.
The variances.
Denial of variances, yes, thank you.
All right. So I have a motion to approve with a deferment of the
With the denial of the variances.
denial of all variances,
With the-
deferring
yeah, got
the
it.
sidewalk discussion.
That's deferring to permitting.
Deferring the
Okay.
drainage study and the water lines.
All right. Did anybody write that down properly?
Well,
Somebody figure out how to word it. Yeah.
Somebody word it
Want
for
to
us.
approve the replat, deny
Preferably
the
a lawyer.
variances that they were requesting, and then defer the drainage study, the water and sewer, and the sidewalks until building and permit.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
I second.
It's you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0.
Leave it to Terry to figure out my thoughts.
It's scary, isn't it? Don't try it again. Yeah.
All right. Where are we? Item 2, comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. The City Council has final authority for approval of comprehensive plan amendments and rezonings. Item A, Blannick. CP 19-02, public hearing and consideration of an amendment to the City of San Angelo Comprehensive Plan, changing certain lands from the neighborhood future land use to the commercial future land use, being the east 5.9 acres of an unaddressed 11.3374 acre tract located approximately 250 feet west of the intersection of Sunset Drive and YMCA Drive. Mr. Fisher.
All right, Commissioners, this is a comp plan amendment and a zone change. We're going to combine them into one.
You want me to read the second one as well then, if you're going to combine them?
Sure?
Or I don't have to?
Yeah. Go ahead, sir.
Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of rezoning from the heavy commercial zoning district to the general commercial zoning district, being an unaddressed 11.3374 acre tract located approximately 250 feet west of the intersection of Sunset Drive and YMCA Drive. Mr. Fisher.
Okay. So the total acreage of the property is 11.3374 acres. So the applicant is applying for a zone change to rezone all of it, which is heavy commercial, to general commercial, CG. The east 5.9 acres is neighborhood in the comprehensive plan. And so the comprehensive plan amendment would just be for that 5.9 acres, essentially to go from neighborhood, which is yellow, to commercial, which is red. And that would facilitate the rezoning as well from CH to CG. So that's where we're at. So current future land use is commercial and neighborhood, and the zoning is heavy commercial right now. So this is looking west, and this is looking east at the property. You have quadrangle apartments immediately to the west, to the east. Glazer's facility is to the south, and then the community medical campus as you drive further to the northwest. So that's Glazer's there, and then that's the quadrangle apartments immediately behind that. So staff is recommending approval, and the applicant's here for more for any questions that you might have. What facilitated this, as I understand it, is there would be a future dentist office that already operates in town that's leasing space, and they wanted to be able to have more land. So changing it to CG will allow the dental office and any remaining land for any future commercial development. So that's what triggered the comp plan and the zone change. Staff believes that both the comp plan amendment and the zoning is compatible with our current comprehensive plan and policies. The commercial designation and the underlying CG zoning would provide a transition between the apartments and the more intense land uses to the west and the south. So you've got Glazers, you've got the community medical. This would be more of a local commercial area that will service the immediate neighborhood. It's consistent with the zoning ordinance. That's 11 acres, so it'll easily meet whatever CG zoning standards. If they choose to plat, they would have to plat the existing property as well as the remainder of whatever they're choosing to plat, and that would also have to meet the CG zoning standards. But given the large lot size, we believe that'll be easily accomplished. It's compatible with the surrounding area. There's already a 6-foot-high privacy fence adjacent to the quadrangle apartments, so that would provide the automatic screening from any future commercial development. And the commercial uses, as mentioned, we believe will be this is a good location because it's so close to residential. The other reason is we're getting the heavy commercial out of there, and we don't really want oil field equipment and things given its proximity to the residential, and the commercial just makes more sense there. Change conditions, the property has remained vacant since 1979 when it was zoned heavy commercial, and then it was platted in '86, so it's basically been vacant for over 30 years. Effect on the natural environment, we don't anticipate any. Any grading and drainage would be reviewed at time of any platting that would come in. We believe there's a community need just given close proximity to the residential area. Right now, if you're an apartment or you're a house in that area, you've got to drive all the way up to Knickerbocker to really get any major retail services, so this would be a good local area for that. And development patterns, Sunset Drive is a major collector street. It's got 4 lanes of traffic, 2 lanes on both sides, so that should easily accommodate any commercial traffic onto the existing network. 6 notifications were mailed out. Staff did not receive any in favor or against. Staff is recommending approval of the comprehensive plan amendment from the neighborhood future land use to the commercial future land use on the east 5.9 acres of the subject property, and approval of a rezoning from the heavy commercial CH zoning district to the general commercial CG zoning district on the entire 11.37 acre property. This concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. Will you pull up the photo of the 2 photos of the front?
So right now, if they tried to rezone this from CH to CG, it wouldn't be consistent with the yellow here. So the first step would be change the yellow to the red for commercial, and then that allows them to change CH to CG. This happened a lot in the past where the zoning ordinance, the first zoning ordinance in town, 1940, and then it was 54, and it kept getting updated. We didn't get a comprehensive plan until 2003. So a lot of the older properties, the zoning was in first. In 1979, this was probably a very different neighborhood. And now that it's become more residential and commercial and not heavy commercial, this would make more sense.
So what you're saying is as we move forward in the future, things tend to change, correct?
Yes.
So we have to plan for it, right?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions for Jeff? All right. Do I have any public comment? All right. Without any public comment or questions, I will entertain a motion.
I make the motion to approve as proposed.
Do we need to have both of these in the motion, or do you want separate?
Comprehensive plan should be voted on first.
Okay. Gotcha. So we need 2 motions then.
I make the motion to approve as proposed with the comprehensive planning.
The amendment to the comprehensive plan.
The amendment to the comprehensive planning.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to approve the item I, the amendment to the comprehensive plan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 5-0 on that. Now I just need one for number 2.
Make a motion to approve Z 19-15 from heavy commercial to general commercial.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. All right, moving on to rezonings. The city council has final authority for approval of rezonings. Item A, amendment to PD 19-04 Concho Collision. Public hearing consideration for request for an amendment to a planned development to modify an approved off-site monument sign at 1909 West Beauregard Avenue, generally located on West Beauregard and between South Tyler and South Harrison. Good morning.
Good morning, Sherry Bailey, Principal Planner again. If this site looks familiar to you, the PD was before you in March, and you did vote to approve that PD. Consequently, it went to City Council. City Council also voted to approve that. Part of the original request was a one monument sign for that triangle piece. And they did present a static design as part of their package. After reviewing it, they have come back. And so now, since it was all one PD and they're asking to amend that PD, the entire site is included in that, and it's 2.38 acres. They used the general address of 1909 West Beauregard. It is south of Sherwood Way and north of West Beauregard, and I'm sure you're very familiar with that triangle piece. It's in District 5, it is in Mr. Carter's district, and it's the Santa Rita neighborhood. This is just the triangle piece, and it is showing where they anticipate, where they anticipate putting the sign. It is in the widest part of the triangle. It is right in front of that concrete space. This is also a picture of that general area. It's right across from the HEB. What they are asking for is to go from the static painted sign to a 5 foot by 10 foot, 5 foot tall by 10 foot wide digital sign. It will have a stucco pillar holding that and a base. And then the actual sign face itself would be 3 feet 2 inches by 6 foot 4 inches. And it will be a two-sided sign. We did, pardon? Oh, I'm sorry.
Somebody's phone.
Someone's phone.
We did look at the general area, examined what the original site and sign was to look at, and then looked at the placement of the site within the triangle. As an aside, the applicant has been working with a landscape firm because he is required to landscape that triangle. He is going to be coming forward to staff with a design for that landscaping. Because of the site triangles and the placement of the sign and the landscaping, everything has to be kept at a very low height of 2 foot to 3 feet. In this case, the sign is in keeping with the comprehensive plan and other signs that have been allowed in the general area. The difference is that this is a monument sign and it is on the ground. The sign will meet the ordinance requirements, and it is compatible with the surrounding area. The applicant believes the sign will reflect positively on the commercial section of Sherwood Way, and he's wanting to do something that really invites into that Sherwood Way commercial area. We believe that there will be no effect on the natural environment of the area. And the community needs the intent is to have this sign, as I indicated, reflect the entire commercial area itself, not just Concho Collision, but really be an invitation into that Sherwood area commercial. And development patterns, we do not believe that the requested amendment will have any impact on the general traffic that's already in that area. We sent out 33 notices. You can see we had 1 in opposition, we've had 3 in favor. The 1 in opposition was very concerned about the fact that they did not want that sign to block their building. Their building is presently, that site is up for sale, and they were just concerned to make sure that that was not going to be blocked. And if you look at the side angle when you go out there, where they're intending on putting it, and the height that they're intending on putting it should not affect the site of that building. Staff is recommending the approval of the amendment as it's presented, subject to 4 conditions, and I'd like to go over those with you in some detail. Because this is a monument sign, it will be limited to just that one monument sign in the triangle, and the approved sign must generally match the design attached to the PD package pertaining to size, height, and placement. The second condition is due to its position, shape, color, format, and illustration, it cannot create an unsafe distraction for motor vehicle operations. We're very concerned about that, as I'm sure you are. Item 3 is the signed copy shall be displayed for a minimum of 8 seconds. If there is a need to expand that after looking at it, if we feel that it's creating a distraction to the traffic in the area, we've asked that to be able to bring it back to the Planning Commission for an extension of that. And then item 4 says the sign shall include photocell technology to control and vary the intensity of the lighting depending on the amount of ambient light that is present. So a difference between the daytime brightness and the nighttime brightness, cloudy consistency brightness. And the intensity of the lighting shall not exceed 300 NTS from dusk until dark. We are concerned about the nighttime. With that, are there any questions?
So my question's on the pillar. So it's 6 foot 4 inches, is that right?
Well, in width, yes.
In width, okay, how tall?
It cannot be above 5 feet, the entire thing, the base and the sign itself. So there'll be a base. The sign is 3 foot 2 inches tall. So the base and that sign are a total of 5 feet.
Okay, so this 5 foot by 10 foot is the whole thing, not
That's
just the
whole
sign?
thing, yes.
Okay. So 5 foot tall, and that's on a odd pattern, traffic pattern there.
You think?
I know. Can you go back to the intersection?
Will that work?
So we have, okay. It's 5 feet tall. I'm back to that one again, I'm sorry. But, so it's far enough back, I guess, from the light, so you're not blocking the traffic there.
That's correct.
From, if you're there.
I think that, I mean, let me get this straight.
Okay.
So you're talking about 5 by 10,
5 foot tall by
illuminated,
10, the entire
Two-
thing including the base.
two-sided illuminated sign,
Yes.
and probably, in my opinion, the most confusing and dangerous intersection we've got when you try to traverse that thing.
Right.
And I'm finding it hard to believe that any of us think that's a great idea, even a good idea at that.
I don't see a blind spot.
When I was out there, I was trying to picture a sign of that size in that triangle and watching the people try to traverse that thing anyway, and then you're going to add a sign to that, I can't see how that is remotely a good idea.
I don't see a blind spot.
You don't see a blind spot? I think half the people that traverse that thing drive like they're blind. That is the most confusing. That is the most before Walmart even came, that was a confusing spot. Now, you need an engineering degree to get around that thing.
It might be confusing, but there's no blind
Up
spot.
to you, man. I mean, that is a very confusing intersection. If anything needs to be crystal clear, it's, in my opinion, that triangle doesn't need any obstructions. Because the people driving that thing all around it don't need any more distractions. Half of them are on their phones anyway. Now we're going to add a 10-foot sign to it. I have a real problem with this case. When I read it this week, I was like, how is that even a good idea?
I will remind you that you did approve the original PD zoning, which had a static painted sign in that same placement of approximately that same size.
I'll just add that staff's concern was less about the sign itself and more about the digital component and how a digital sign at that location might distract traffic near a complicated intersection, which is why we recommended the limitations. It can't have motion or animation or scrolling text. It has to display a static image for at least 8 seconds, which is the text.standard, standard, and then it can display a new static image. It can't have a transition or, one sign wipes to another. So it has to be a static image replaced with a static image at no more than 8-second intervals to help address that concern.
Yeah, but I mean, my concern, Terry, I think you and I might be on the same page somewhat, but my concern is not that I have zero against the sign. I mean, I think the illuminated signs are, it's just, look, that's just technology changing and you just have to accept change and move on. But if we were back in the 80s and this was just a sign stuck in the ground on a post, I mean, and it wasn't illuminated with any lighting at all, golly, I couldn't imagine. I'm just saying, I mean, everyone at one point in time during the week goes to that intersection. And I just cannot see adding a 10-foot distraction to that thing. If anything, that thing needs to be crystal clear. I don't.
Is there a blind spot created for the people that are crossing on the side street there, turning onto Beauregard or Sherwood Way?
Tyler,
Yeah, and Tyler.
South Tyler.
Create a blind spot for them.
And just to clarify one thing, the height of it is 5 feet max.
Right.
The sign itself is 3 by 2. So we're looking at is that correct, Sherry? It's a 6 square feet sign. So the actual digital sign is 3 feet by 2 feet. The monument itself is what is 5 feet tall by 10 feet wide. So
It's still to me, it's still an object. It doesn't
Yes, sir.
matter what it is, right?
And there was, like Sherry said, there was a sign approved. There was a sign approved in the original PD. It was just a board with a stick.
Right.
What
Si-
was that size
That's
overall?
what we're talking about right now.
Okay.
Sherry's going to clarify.
And let me bring that up again. The approved sign is the same size.
5 by 10, but
Yes.
it's
What you-
not digital. It's just
It's not digital, it is a static painted sign. I've put on there the setbacks to give you a better reference. It's 25 feet from the curb back to the placement of that sign, and it's 19 feet on the Sherwood side, and it's, I believe, 15 feet on the Beauregard side.
Yeah. I physically walked on that. And I just could not believe that this was a good idea. So, look, I'm one person who really, I mean, no one cares what I think, but I'm just one person. And I'm telling you that that intersection, and we're making it about the sign. The signs are great. These guys do great work. They make beautiful signs. Everybody knows that. It's not about the sign. It's the fact that in my opinion, nothing belongs in that intersection. Half the people driving it don't belong in that intersection. That thing does not need another distraction, in my opinion. So we don't have to go down a rabbit hole, right? I said it. That's it. Y'all have any other comments?
No, I tend to agree with you. I've always thought that needed to be city
Terrible
property
intersection.
and just
Terrible.
landscaped.
I don't think they need to be looking at flowers. They don't need to be looking at, it needs to be concrete. Anyway, do I have any other questions for staff?
I mean, that being said, I mean, they could put a sign up there the same size, same
It's
way,
already-
just
yeah.
not
Now,
digital,
yes.
because it's
Right.
already approved.
It's already approved on the PD.
Yes.
We're just changing it to digital.
That's correct.
Any improvement, it's just a bad idea to touch it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have any public comment on this? All right. Without any public comment, I entertain a motion. Anyone want to make a motion?
To approve as
All right. I have a motion to approve as presented.
As presented.
Do I have a second? Would anyone care to make a second?
I'm going to second it.
I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion failed 3-2. Moving on, item B. Lonita Benson. Public hearing consideration of request for approval of a rezoning from the general commercial heavy commercial zoning district to the planned development zoning district to allow for an indoor entertainment facility with accessory alcoholic beverage sales for on-premise consumption, outdoor recreation and entertainment, and mobile food units, being 1.072 acres located at 4382 Southwest Boulevard. Mr. Fisher, you're up.
Morning again, Planning Commissioners. Jeff Fisher, Principal Planner. PD 1908, Ionita Benson. This is 1.07 acres at the southwest corner of Southwest Boulevard and Green Meadow Drive. The proposed rezoning is from CGCH to PD, and the planned development will allow an entertainment facility for a family entertainment facility, which will include an indoor and an outdoor area. And so this underlying current CGCH zoning, which allows retail, would have allowed just the indoor component. So the two additional things that triggered the PD was the sale of beer and wine from the property, as well as the outdoor recreational areas on the property. This is in should be District 6, Billy DeWitt in the Southland neighborhood. The future land use is commercial, and the current zoning is CGCH. So this used to be the All About Signs location. It's been vacant for about 2 years. The applicant submitted concept plans and renderings, which I'll show you in a minute. There is a lack of a lot of family entertainment venues in San Angelo, and so that's their target market. And basically would allow food trucks to sell food from here, beer and wine sales, and indoor, games, and as well as an outdoor recreation area, which could include games as well. If you've been to Fuzzy's Tacos, kind of on a smaller scale, that little outdoor area, so the cornhole and those sorts of games as well, and maybe some playground structures. So this is looking west, and this is looking east. If you go south, you've got apartments, and if you go north, you get towards the McDonald's at the corner, so just to give you some proximity. There's an existing paved parking lot in the front. It's not striped yet. The applicant has provided a concept plan, which I'll show you in a minute. So all of the buildings will stay on the property except for one of the storage buildings that will be removed. So this probably outlines it a little bit better. So you have the existing metal building at the front. There's also an 8-foot high fence behind the parking area here. So this should not be visible from the apartments across the street anyway. All of that will remain. The existing building, you'll have a beer and wine area here, indoor seating for families, and then a storage office area for the employees. The back here, this building, there's one wall, I believe, on this side, which will be knocked out, and it will basically remain as a covered structure, but open on all sides, and that will be an outdoor seating area. There'll be games around here, and then this building will stay as an indoor game area. So everything you see here will stay and be used for the new uses. The storage building, as I understand, will be removed. If they end up being short parking, they will have to provide more parking or work with us on getting an alternative parking plan, depending on the size of their outdoor game area. As some of you know, we brought forward some changes to our parking ordinance that will require measuring around the outdoor areas, could trigger some more parking, but we'll get there. So this is pretty much the concept plan. Staff is supporting the request for approval with conditions. We believe that it's compatible with the plans and policies. Commercial designation, commercial use, so that complies. As part of this, in order to make it more compatible with the surrounding area, we are putting limits on hours of operation. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, they'd have to close it at 12. Most places, again, that are not family related, if this was a regular bar, they get their TABC licensing, they could stay open until 2 a.m. We'd like to put a restriction at 12. The applicant had provided us with some initial projections, and they believe they'll be closed by 10 during the week, and I think by 11 on the weekend, so this will fit. And then Sunday to Wednesday, closed by 10:30. We have our noise ordinance in the City Code of Ordinances says no obstructive noise after 10:30, so that makes sense. And then on the weekends, allow them a little more flexibility. We also would like sidewalks on Southwest and along Green Meadow, given the apartments there and some of the other commercial businesses. A landscape plan at the time of prior to permitting. We did that with another project by one of the same applicants on Green Meadow as well. And so we think with the landscape plan, they're also going to fence the east mesh fence, chain link fence, which is not enclosed, so that'll pretty much close the gap so that all four sides will be enclosed and will not be visible. So with the new fencing, landscaping, early closing hours, sidewalks, we believe it will be compatible with the surrounding area. Change conditions, the current CGCH, again, the CH portion is not really conducive in this area. It's a retail commercial area with offices and residential, so the heavy commercial would be removed. The underlying CG would stay in terms of setbacks and development standards, and hopefully if you all approve this will allow a family entertainment facility in the area that'll be close to amenities. Effect on natural environment, we don't anticipate anything, but there is a floodplain for most of the rear of the property. And so the north fence that was already installed facing McDonald's did receive a permit from a previous applicant. I think it would have been the All About Signs property. Unfortunately, that expired, and so as a condition of approval, they'll have to get a permit again from the permits division just to reinstall that 8-foot fence over there. We believe there's a community need for more family entertainment facilities in San Angelo. The applicant had given us some information from some other cities in Texas, in the Austin area and Dallas, as well as New Mexico and Oklahoma City with similar facilities. And so we believe this would be consistent with what the applicants are proposing here. And finally, development patterns. They'd maintain their current access onto Green Meadow. They're proposing a one-way, so I'm not sure how that will work yet, but one way in and one way out, which will hopefully have better traffic flow. And again, you're very close to Loop 306, so hopefully most of that traffic will exit the loop and then come down Southwest and make a quick turn into the property and not have to use those local streets. 11 notices were mailed out. The applicant has submitted 5 letters in favor. I've provided those to you. One of them is in the 200-foot radius, and there was no opposition. So staff is recommending approval from the general commercial, heavy commercial, CGCH zoning district to the PD zoning district to allow for an indoor entertainment facility with accessory alcohol beverage sales for on-premise consumption, outdoor recreation and entertainment, and mobile food units on the subject property, subject to 7 conditions of approval. So compliance with the underlying CG zoning, so far it does. Overall site use is consistent with the approved concept plan. Type 1 outdoor storage only, so that's 5 feet from the building wall. The CG zoning allows type 2, which would allow up to 10%, and that could allow a lot of things we don't want there, so we would just limit it to, if they were just storing some crates or something, that would be fine, but just nothing more. The revised concept plan, we want to see sidewalks where those outdoor amenity areas are, because like I was saying, anything that's related to this use that's outdoor, you would basically just draw a box around that area. That would be one space for every 100 square feet of parking. So it looks like they'll be close to compliance, but we can work that out. All exterior lighting to be shielded. The applicant hasn't provided any lighting details, but they can do that prior to permitting. And again, limited hours to 10:30 Sunday to Wednesday, and then midnight Thursday to Saturday. And finally, obtain a permit for that existing north fence where that previous permit had expired. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions or comments?
I just have one question. So walk me through the hours of operation. So when I think about on-premise consumption, I think about how busy a place is between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. Right, very, very busy, depending on the city.
Right.
I would imagine alcoholic beverage sales between 11 and 2 a.m. are very, very high.
Yes.
So are we limiting we work for the people, right? So they're our customer. Are we limiting them with that restriction? I just want you to walk me through that, because it's easy for them, because they're not open, to say, oh, yeah, absolutely, we'll be closed by midnight. We would love that. Fast forward, customer demand, we just sort of pigeonholed them, right?
Sure, and I think
walk me through how we're telling them, if we are, kind of walk me through our thought process as to why we're telling them when they can and can't open, because we don't do that to McDonald's across the street, right?
Well, I think that McDonald's or a restaurant would normally close by a certain time, and they don't sell alcohol. And I think that was the difference, is the beer and wine sales, which are typically associated with the bar. So just to recap, I talked to one of the developers. We had a good conversation, and their proposed hours of operation, they had given us this template that as of right now, they would close by 10 p.m. They wouldn't be open Mondays at all. They'd be closed Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday by 10, and then Friday and Saturday by 11, right, and Sunday by 9. So essentially what we're doing is we're giving them the extra hour. And I think the trade-off was, this is a family-friendly facility as of right now, but there's nothing that we can only regulate land use, not the user. So if in 5 years they changed it into something else, at that time they could always come back and do a PD amendment. So the applicant agreed to that. I think if they called it a bar, then we'd have to consider, is a bar an appropriate location? And I would say that's hard to determine at this point. And I think if it was a bar, on the weekends you could go up to 2. I think because this is more of a family facility that would normally shut down by 11 anyway, and then if they have an event or something that they might want to stay open later, and that's why we included the Thursday, so they'd have at least one day during the week, and Friday and Saturday was kind of the compromise. And they're here to answer any questions.
And additionally, we're looking at an outdoor recreation facility. I mean, it's not an amusement park, but it is an outdoor.
So nothing goes on inside?
There are a couple of, Jeff can point out the indoor areas, but a lot of it is outdoor, kind of sit around a table with your kids, enjoy, some games or something to that effect. And subsequently, that could affect the adjacent residential with the outdoor component. So I think that's what Jeff was trying to balance, was, the helping the business and also protecting the residents that are directly across the street.
Look, I get what y'all are, and I'm not saying that I disagree with it. I think that if whoever is opening this business, they're not open yet. They do not know what the customer demand is going to be, so I don't want them to handcuff themselves before they get the opportunity. I just want that to be, I would be mindful of that. I mean, I wouldn't, unless it was an ordinance saying I had to be shut down by 10 or 10:30 on Monday or 2, whatever it is. I want to control my open and close sign, so that's just me. I just want to make sure that we don't handcuff somebody before they even open.
Yeah, but the times that Jeff is talking about, he's extended them past what the applicants were asking for.
Okay.
Do they have proper parking for that much space?
Right now, based on the square footages, they would be short 1. So one of the conditions was that they submit a revised site plan to us. Now, depending on how many areas that they're going to have outside, that would play out into whether or not they're going to comply or not comply. They're very close right now, as it is, just by taking the indoor areas. So I think rather than trying to get all of that detail today, we wanted to allow this to move forward. If they're short parking, then they just won't be able to provide as much outdoor space, but they could work with planning staff on that. And one option, as we've worded in here, is an alternative parking plan. If they can show it at peak demand time that, hey, we're only, we've got 15 spaces here, the ordinance says we need 18 now instead of 15, we're going to be 3 short. If it's close enough, that's something that John would look at, and we could consider doing an alternative
Or
parking
shared,
plan.
shared parking as well.
Yeah, that was
Shared,
my
that's right.
question, right? So we have a few businesses around there that don't keep those types of hours, so there could be some type of, there are businesses that use after-hours parking and I guess that would be between the landowners, but I don't think parking in this situation is probably going to be an issue.
And I think the animal clinic, because they called just to inquire about it, I think they closed down by about 6 or 7, so.
All right. Y'all have any more questions? Do I have any public comment? All right. One coming up. Come on up. Please state your name for the record.
My name's Brittany Ionita. I am actually one of the developers along with Brian Benson, who's sitting behind us. So really, it sounds like everyone is pretty supportive at the moment. Basically, we felt that in general, San Angelo has a very, we don't have a lot of family entertainment facilities currently here. After the pizza place shut down by Fuzzies, and then the Pearls Hours, closed a while back, now they're open, we felt like this was definitely a need for the community in order to get people out and about, having fun with their kids and just spending genuine family time. As far as other intended use, like Jeff had said, we've got, and I don't know how to work this thing, I'm sorry. The fence line, the chain link right here, that is actually facing the animal clinic. We were going to put a privacy fence up there, just again, trying to keep everything contained within the current platted land. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else unless there's any questions.
Y'all have any questions for him? No? Thank you. Any further public comment on this case? All right, I'll close public comment, and if y'all don't have any questions or comments, I will entertain a motion.
Make the motion to approve as proposed.
A motion to approve as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. Moving on to specialty uses. The City Council has final authority for approval of special uses. Item A, Life Point, SU 19-03, Life Point Baptist Church. Public hearing and consideration of a request for a special use to allow an indoor multi-use recreational facility and related recreational activities, daycare, community outreach, community services, and educational programs on the property. Currently zoned single-family residential RS1, two-family residential RS2, located 810 and 11 Austin Street, 818 Kenwood. Good morning.
Shelley Pascal, planner. As you stated, this is a special
Hold on,
use.
Hold on real quick.
I'm gonna step out of this.
Okay. Apparently we have Mr. Self has a conflict of interest, so we're going to wait just 1 second for him to clear the room, and then we will move on.
Of course.
We still have a quorum. Thank you. Go ahead.
Special use 1903 Life Point Church. As you stated, this is a special use for indoor multi-use recreation facility and related recreational activities, daycare, community outreach, community service, and educational programs. It is located at both 810 and 811 Austin and 818 Kenwood Drive. It is in Mr. Lane Carter's District 5 district, and it's in Santa Rita. The future land use and the zoning maps here, the future land use, the FLU calls it to be neighborhood. It is currently zoned RS1 and RS2. Here's a couple of photos of the subject property, the church and the fellowship hall. These are residents, the first one's a residence across West Avenue D, and the other one is the actual gym, the front of the gym that's going to house the recreational activities. A couple more residents within the neighborhood. The first one is directly across Kenwood Drive, and the other one, as you can see here, this is the back of the gymnasium. This is right behind the gym. And this is a residence across West Washington Drive, as well as the other. Both of these are across from West Washington. This residence is currently, it's behind the church, and then north of the subject property is River Terrace. The rationale for approval in this case, the impacts on the nearby residents will be increased, but it could be minimal. Within the neighborhood, retail sales and service may not be appropriate, and the impacts on the homes does remain a concern. A special use does allow for us to review the uses and may be appropriate to provide that impact could be minimized. The proposed use will occupy the existing building and not increase floor area of the buildings. Compatible with the surrounding area, there is concern with the existing residential homes in the area. However, there is a lawful conditional use on the church facility that already brings people in from the community that would not ordinarily travel into this area. West Washington is a major collector, and we do believe it can handle a little bit heavier traffic compared to that of a local street. We do not feel that there's going to be any anticipated negative environmental effects. As a community need, we do believe that a recreational facility does fill a need within our community, as there's not many similar facilities within San Angelo. However, this specific location might not be the most appropriate. Development patterns, current development patterns would not change. The proposed use will occupy an existing building. We did mail out 24 notifications, and I did hand those a copy to each of you. We did receive 1 in favor and 6 in opposition. Staff, we do recommend approval of the special use to allow indoor multifamily recreation facility and related activities, daycare, community outreach, community service, and educational programs, subject to 5 conditions. All new lighting on the premises shall be shielded downward. The hours of operation of the event shall be limited between 6 a.m. and 11 p.m. Any proposed illuminated signs shall be turned off between 11 and 6 and must receive approval through the Design and Historic Review Commission. And any new signage must comply with non-residential use signage within the residential districts. And the city does reserve the right to inspect the property to verify compliance. Any questions?
I think one of the only concerns that I've heard is, sort of when you look at and I don't know this particular church, right, their activities, but you look at a Wednesday night or a Sunday afternoon, maybe a couple on Sundays, I don't know. Walk me through sort of the traffic pattern, right? I mean, this conditional use is going to do what? Are we going to allow, now we're allowing retail into this neighborhood, right?
Yes, sir.
Nothing's free. Doesn't matter what's going on in there, right? Something is going to be paid for. So what type of traffic pattern is this going to create that doesn't already exist? I think that one of us, we were discussing it before we started, but I'd like to know, that's the letters that we received seem to be about traffic count. So just kind of walk us through what is the actual plan to do inside that building, and what is that going to do? I mean, obviously it's going to bring more people.
Right, and I can absolutely answer the basics, but I know our applicant here is here also. The gymnasium would operate more than just Wednesday and Sunday. It's a gymnastics school coming in.
Right.
So where your typical activities with the church are Wednesday and Sunday, this will be more of a everyday
Right. So
possibility.
you have the potential of, and I know zero about gymnastics classes, but if you have 15, 20, or 25 kids, chances are they're not carpooling, right? So you're having another 25 cars a day, and I'm making all these numbers up, but that's what I envision if I live across the street from that church. I envision another 20 to 25 cars per day, dropping those kiddos off, coming back again to pick them up at whatever time it ends. And so I can understand living in that neighborhood that I'd kind of be like, well, this thing went from being, a church with some traffic, but it's been there a very long time, obviously, right? So they've lived with that, but now we're going to add on to that. Then there's the business aspect.
Right.
Are we allowing businesses to come into our neighborhoods now under a conditional use, right? So I'm like,
Under the special use,
special use, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. An approval through the special use, that's why it's limited to the specific items of the recreational facility, the daycare. It will be limited to those specific. You couldn't just have a store come in.
But if you put a gymnasium in there for a tumbling team, you're going to have matches, practices. I mean, it's a constant flow of traffic and a constant flow of people, and I don't agree with that. That's not what that facility was originally built for. So,
I mean, it is a business, right? I mean, it
is a separate business up from the church.
Correct. The gymnastics and whatever else is going to have a fee attached to it, which completely, in my opinion, completely changes.
Since it is a business, will it be paying property taxes?
No.
It's a church.
It's church. Good point. But
It will remain
we can't take that into consideration.
It will remain owned by the church.
And look, and look, this has nothing to do with attacking the church. I mean, look, I was baptized by a bishop, so trust me, I love the church. But we need to really do a separation of what is this church originally designed to do, and what is it trying to transition into, right? It's trying to transition into an income producing entity in a neighborhood. And so it's difficult, right? And we're here to make difficult decisions. They're not all easy.
I'd like to say that this is a quiet neighborhood and is anything but commercial. From the new storage units going on the river at Park and Beauregard and the trashing of Sulphur Draw, from the new sewer pump station, Santa Rita doesn't need something else to chip away from the neighborhood. And I know from living in Santa Rita that the homeowners are fed up.
That's obvious from the opposition votes we've received.
All right. Do y'all have any other comments for staff? No, not right now. Okay. Do I have any public comment? Please come up, state your name.
Jay Clatworthy, I pastor Life Point Baptist Church, and I actually do live in the Santa Rita neighborhood not far from the church. It's interesting to me that you asked about traffic flow, and if you can go back on the slides to where the negative comments came from. Thank you. It appears to me that most of the negative comments come from River Terrace, which at this moment does create a traffic problem in our area. There are cars lining that street all the time, so they're concerned about our traffic problem, but the one that they pose, they're not concerned about. Secondly, I would say I think the question is good as far as, are we going to allow this in this area? River Terrace already has the exact same special use permitting, and I would just caution that the federal appellate courts have repeatedly said that if you allow a non-faith-based organization a certain permitting and then you refuse it for a church, you're in violation of the Religious Use Land Act that was passed in 2001, and that's been upheld over and over and over again. So to allow River Terrace to have the very same thing that you're denying, would be denying us, if that's the way you would go, I think would be problematic.
So you're saying we have a constitutional crisis?
I'm saying that allowing a secular organization in this area the exact same thing that you would deny us for is problematic.
Do you think it's problematic that the people that live at the River Terrace pay taxes on the property?
Fact.
I pay taxes on my property,
Yeah,
and I think that
guys, why don't we not get into the
issue,
argument about who pays taxes and who doesn't?
Again,
Let's just stick to
the issue is
let's just stick to
taxation
the
here.
agenda. I don't want. Look, we're not
No,
going to argue
no,
about.
that's the question.
I understand he brought it up, but look, let's not go down the rabbit
No,
hole
let's
about who
deal
pays
with-
taxes.
If we're gonna,
We get it.
if this is the issue,
You
then
bring up
let's work through that.
You bring up a valid point. I get it, but I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole up here about who's paying taxes and all. Let's just
I just think it
concentrate
needs
on
to
the
be
agenda.
noted for the record that that was part of the
We're going to take
the
pot shots
discussion.
at each other all day. So let's
I
keep
do
it-
pay taxes. I don't think that has anything to do with our zoning law.
You pay taxes, but does the church pay property taxes?
No, but
What
we,
does that matter
we-
in making this decision?
It matters.
it should not matter.
This is not on the discussion.
This is
You
not
have
nothing to
to
do with the discussion.
You have to respect the decision of the chair unless the
Thank you.
rest of the board overrides that on a motion to
Right.
take.
Let's please stick to the agenda.
Thank you.
I understand I understand everybody has different feelings about
I will just
churches
say,
and taxes and things of that. I didn't interrupt you. Hang
Sure.
on. Churches and we get it. We have these discussions a lot when these mega churches are buying up all the properties. I'm very vocal about that as well, but this is not the time or place. So let's stick to the agenda, please.
Sure.
And let's keep it civil. Go ahead.
I just would like to say that we have walked through what taxes would have to be paid with Tom Green County Appraisal District. We made sure that we're above par with what is required there, and there's a whole lengthy discussion as to how that is handled and how that would be handled going forward, and I will make sure that we are in compliance with whatever federal and state regulations. I'm committed to that. And again, I just don't think that comes to bear on this particular decision. The building has actually been used for the exact purpose we're asking the special use permit for multiple times in the past. We're not increasing traffic flow. We're not actually changing the traffic flow. I hear a lot of questions about that. I don't
Hang on a
see-
minute. So let me ask you that.
Sure.
You're saying you won't change the traffic flow. So how are these kiddos getting to walk me through
Yeah, that's
walk
a
me
very
through
good
that.
question. Very good. So we actually rent the gymnasium out to other athletic organizations on an ongoing basis already. That's pretty typical for any church. This is just bringing in one person to rent the building out all the time. And so we're taking 6 ball teams out of the equation and adding one proprietor into the equation, if that makes sense. It's the simplest way I think I can communicate that.
Look, he does have a valid point about River Terrace. They do operate a restaurant, right? So I believe it's open day and night. So I mean, there's a point, right?
So
And I get it.
compound the issue and add more
But then
traffic
I know, that's what I'm saying. It comes to a point to
daily
where we
basis?
have to
And I would
understand
say
that we're
that
going to be
this
compounding that.
I would say this exact same proprietor is doing business over off of A&M. And if you want to talk about traffic flow, go to where she's currently at. You'll see a traffic flow issue.
Bad.
It's bad. And look, there is plenty of parking in our lots.
No doubt, it's huge.
And there's plenty of roadway for people to get in and out of. And I don't have Linda here, the proprietor, to answer your questions. I wish I did. She does a lot of private lessons throughout the daytime too, where you've got one parent that's dropping off a kid. Obviously, in the evening time, there would be an influx. But I don't
Again,
think
you're
that
gonna
it's
have
above
matches.
I don't think that it's above and beyond what's already there.
Okay, so do you currently have a daycare also, or is that just included with
The
times
space
during
that they
the-
would be leasing, and the space that would be leased out for the daycare has been used for that purpose in the past.
I thought when the Heights or the Park Heights at that time, they had a daycare.
They did, and it was in that particular
Okay.
area of the building. We're just trying to use facilities that we have, steward our buildings well, allow business that has need for this type of facility to use it. And I think, as already been stated, these kinds of facilities in San Angelo are pretty hard to come by. I know that I've got ball teams that we're sending away if we do this, that it's difficult. So I think it's a good thing to have one individual that our church can work through. Look, we want to be good neighbors to the people that are in the Santa Rita area. That's part of our desire. And having one proprietor to work with and achieving that end is a whole lot easier than having 6 different groups to deal with.
Thank you. Do I have any more public comment on this case? Good morning. Please state your name.
Morning, Deborah Grisson. I just recently purchased a home at 715 Austin Street this summer. And I did send in an opposition letter, but it's not marked on their property lot number 23. I'm familiar with Santa Rita. I grew up in Santa Rita. I live south of town now, but I'm looking forward to retiring and moving back into the area. I have an enormous concern about what this could do to our home values and the marketability of our homes. I'm very concerned about the intersection of Avenue D and Austin and the parking. And I think there's going to be, with the daycare and increased activities, I think the traffic's going to be more cumbersome than it's been in the past. I'm familiar with the River Club, but it's been there for a very long time and has a humongous parking lot. So I just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to let you know that I'm adamantly against this as far as a resident that's just purchased property to move back into the area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Hello. I live over at, my name is Brian Kendrick. I live over at 2733 Yale Avenue, and it's just around the corner from where they are currently. I happen to attend Life Point Baptist as well. But what I would say is the facility that exists at Life Point and the infrastructure around there as far as the streets would be so much better than what we are dealing with over on right off of A&M. I go past it when, at 5 o'clock when they're dropping off their kids, when I'm coming home from work, and it is miserable on A&M. It would be a lot better with the multiple streets, the larger parking lot would be able to handle that kind of a facility much better than what's going on currently around my house, which is pretty difficult around 5 o'clock.
Morning.
Morning. My name is Don Payne. I am property owner at number 16 up there. I've lived across the street from the church for about 29 years. I've not responded in opposition at this point because I hadn't heard what they want to do. And I think that's a big problem. The church hasn't really reached out to the community at large and said exactly what their plans are here, so we don't know how this is going to affect us. Now, in the past, over the 29 years that I've been there, through Park Heights and the Heights Baptist Church, we've seen a number of uses of activities at the churches that were not necessarily compatible with a residential neighborhood. Now, the church and the neighbors have coexisted for many years and done pretty well together. But there have been times when there was noise. There was activities that went on later than they should have, activities that went on at night in the gymnasium, which is right across the street from my house, that produced a lot of noise that we could hear on a boom, boom, boom type basis in the middle of the night. I don't want to turn it into a gripe session because it hasn't been that bad. There have been some things that we've learned to live with, and I don't want to shut anybody down when they're trying to pursue the use of their property. But at the same time, I've heard the gentleman talk about, and I did come in the middle of this, but I heard the gentleman talk about they thought that the traffic wouldn't be any worse, that they thought this, they thought that. Well, have the proponents of this done a traffic study? Do we know what's going to happen here? Now, just looking at a couple of the uses here, the gymnastics, the gentleman just talked about how miserable it is where they are now. Well, we don't have this infinite parking facility over there in that area, and the streets are not particularly wide. It's a quiet neighborhood. With an influx of what's miserable someplace else into our neighborhood, are we going to become miserable? There's been no traffic study done to tell us about that. Then on top of it, outdoor operations. Are they going to do anything outdoors? There's room in the parking lots, and they've done that before. At one point, there was sand volleyball nets set up out there, and people playing volleyball and loud and boisterous until dark at night. And we didn't say much about that because that was a use. They did pack it in between 9 and 10, and usually wasn't that bad. But these are the kinds of things that we have to be concerned about. Traffic patterns. When you're talking about a daycare, how many people have been past the daycare in the mornings when it's time for drop-off, or in the afternoons when it's time to pick up? Particularly the daycares. There's one right up the street on Austin that is pretty crowded. It's difficult to get around in the morning. I don't know where the drop-off or the pickup is going to be for daycare. I don't know where the line is going to be. Where are people going to come in, drop their kids off, and leave? We haven't been told that. I don't know how that's going to affect my property or anybody else's. What hours of operation are we talking about here for these uses that the church wants to go into? As far as these community services that they want to offer, what are we talking about? Right now I see there's a generalization, but how many people is that going to attract? I think we need some specifics. I think the church needs to tell the neighborhood what can we expect that they want to do. Because right now, if we don't have enough information to respond either in favor or in opposition to this. But without the information, I would have to be opposed to it at this point because I want to know how it's going to affect my property. As I've said in the past, there have been uses, there have been things that the churches have done that have not been particularly compatible with a residential neighborhood or with the maintenance of property values. Private property values have to be a concern. So I think that I'd like to hear more from the church. I think they need to do some groundwork here and tell us exactly what they want to do and how it's going to affect us. And then I'll decide whether or not I can say yes or no. But if I'm not going to get that information, I've got to say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
To clarify, it would seem to me that all of the things that were just brought up, the church could do. The church could run a daycare out of the church. The church could set up volleyball nets. That's part of church activity. So all the concerns that were brought up recently aren't really related to this. And what I would say again, A&M, if you go and drive where it is currently, it is nowhere near the infrastructure, and I'm sure some of you are very aware of that, that exists over there by Life Point.
Thank you.
Real quick, I'm going to hand these out as you're getting up there.
Please state your name.
Jody White, and I'm Don Payne's wife, and our back driveway is right across from the gym. And in the past, when they've had activities in that gym, there have been things that have gone on all night long, movies, and the doors are left open, and there's been noise, and it reverberates in our bedroom like we can hear the bass, boom, 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 boom. And it's louder in our bedroom than it is when you walk over there. And I've walked around that church many times looking for somebody to talk to about it. Endlessly walked around looking for somebody to talk to, can't find anyone. And I called repeatedly and left messages, never get a response back. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, do I have any further public comment? All right, I will close public comment.
I'll say, though, that
Terry, go ahead.
we have a lot of churches that are in residential areas, and they do, one of the things that churches do is community outreach, community service, educational, recreation activities. All of these are done. I lived on Washington for over 22 years, and never had any issues. I did not live in the back door of the church or anything like that. I think some of these things that we're discussing today, the church has every right to do that. So we need to remember that what we're talking about is the special use permit for the recreation for gymnastics to be there regularly. I do have one question on the hours of business that was brought up that I think it was 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Okay, that's what I have on here. And that is for, you're not going to have gymnastics at 6 a.m.
Would you come up, please? Thank you.
Understanding is that 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. is dealing with the signage, but part of the agreement, the lease that will be signed with Texas Tumbleweeds is there will not be any activities on Sundays so that we're not compounding the parking problem. Anytime that we have church services, she's not going to be doing her business, and then between 6 and 11 is just the scope of when she would be able to do, if somebody asked her to do a private lesson at 6 a.m., I guess she could, but I wouldn't say that you're going to have a huge class at 6 a.m.
I would be more inclined to not have, somebody's going to gymnastics at 11 p.m.? Y'all are open till 11 p.m. for gymnastics?
Not the proprietor of the business, so
So I was just, that was the hours.
That would be the latest.
No
And I
one
think
studies-
that this
no one
actually
studies
does
anymore?
resolve some of those problems of having, youth activities into the evening that were brought up as well, because the building would be closed at those late hours, so.
So Texas Tumbleweeds is going to lease the gym as a whole for their business is what?
Yes.
Okay, so the church is not going to have any use of the
There's a
building?
potential that we would use on Sunday morning for classroom instructional, Sunday school classes, that kind of a thing. But as far as youth activities, us using the gym for athletic programs, no. It would be strictly for gymnastics.
So, again, for the record, Texas Tumbleweeds is not a nonprofit.
Of course not.
I'm
I
asking.
understand that you're concerned about those
No, I'm
tax
asking
questions.
yes or no.
You would have to ask them, but my understanding is no, they're a business.
They are a business. Do you think that that's fair to people in commercial real estate that make their money leasing commercial properties?
Is it fair that they make money on their property and that the church can't receive revenue because of our property? That's a longer discussion, I think. And
No, I don't. I think that they pay property taxes.
Right, but we,
Back
guys.
on your, you're back on your
Guys.
I get it.
soapbox.
We're not
We're-
paying
guys,
taxes
look,
if we wouldn't be
we're
more
not getting
agreeable
into-
to this.
You're getting into
I
an
get it.
area and you're asking questions that would violate, potentially be in violation of RUPLA. Those are matters that you should not consider.
I do have a question.
Consider that when you
Is this proceeding recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
And I can request a copy of
televised.
that? Okay.
Of course.
Very good.
Televised, we don't hide anything.
Perfect. No, I just wanted to make sure.
Send it to
Did
whomever
I
you
answer
want
your
to send it.
question?
Yes, thank you.
But it does not. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, that line of questioning is, that's information that distinguishes it. Well, if it's a church, we're going to treat it differently than if it's another applicant.
Right. We're
And
here.
that's specifically prohibited.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to shut it down. So we do not and will not take into consideration whether you are a nonprofit or not. We don't take into consideration if what taxes you pay and don't pay, and we should not and do not take into consideration what something may or may not cost into our discussions. We are not here to talk about what something may or may not cost. We are here to do what's best for the neighborhoods, regardless of what these decisions may be. They are not monetary. So, oh boy. Do y'all have any other questions for, first of all, do I have any other public comment?
I would simply briefly respond to the gentleman a moment ago. Hours of operation, 11 to 6. Or, I'm sorry, 6 to 11. I'm sorry, but I believe that that is entirely incompatible with a neighborhood. My property, for instance, and a couple of others are directly across the street. At 6 o'clock in the morning, most of us are still asleep or just waking up. There's going to be increased traffic coming into the neighborhood at that time. 11 o'clock at night, same thing. Most of us are trying to go to sleep. I don't stay up as late as I used to, but I mean, the fact is, I don't think that that's a compatible use when you're literally 50 feet across the street from a neighborhood. I think those hours give the business a license to act in a way that's not compatible as a neighbor in the neighborhood, and so I would object on the basis of those hours, and I believe that those are unreasonable for the situs of this operation.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
The hours of operation that are stated on Texas Tumbleweed's website are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I would assume that she would be willing to comply if you wanted to constrict the special use permit to those hours. I would be agreeable to it as well.
Yeah, so, and I was going to bring up that point when I closed public comment, right? So if we look at this case, it seems to be the hours are coming up more than anything. The noise during those hours, and not necessarily the traffic, because as one gentleman brought up a while ago, it is a completely different traffic pattern at this location than it is, right? So we're not going to be taking, in my opinion, we're not taking one problem from an area and dumping it off on another area. This area is a little bit better constructed to support these activities. So it's not that we're going to take, what was it, Avenue, what avenue was that?
A&M.
A&M. We're not taking A&M's problem and dumping it over here on Washington. I don't think that's what anybody wants to do. I just think it's better suited.
We are if we vote yes.
Well, not necessarily.
The
So
streets are entirely different. If you've
streets
driven
are-
over there, that
you're
is
exactly
a
right.
small gymnasium that was part of an elementary school. The streets are very narrow. This is so you're, Conley, the street situation, the traffic situation is different.
I will say that if, regardless of the business name, it doesn't matter who the business owner is, if any gymnastics or anything wanted to do this particular activity, take the church out of the equation, could they do it tomorrow, or would they have to come here? If they wanted to do it on their own, could they do it tomorrow?
In this location, they would have to come for this exact same special use. So let's say the church went away, moved,
Correct.
closed, and now you've got to find a use for a church facility. If a gymnastics facility wanted to buy the property, use the gym, they would have to come for this exact same.
Correct.
And a lot of the city staff's verbiage leads me to it's not definitive. I mean, it might, could possibly, so I don't feel comfortable.
Because you don't know, right? So
Right.
they have to take the city, when they put this together for us to look at, they have to take into consideration everything that could possibly go on and when it can go on.
Right.
They have to paint us a clear picture. My question is, can we find a common ground and it may not be today, right? This may need to be tabled for a further discussion. I don't know that. Is there a common ground between the church and the folks that live in that neighborhood? Because the gentleman did bring up a good point. We already have somebody operating day and night right down the street, right? That produces a lot of traffic, right? So, and you talk about special events and things like that. Well, what if, what is it called, the River Terrace? If the River Terrace did a wedding, right? So that place doing a wedding and having 250 people at one time is not any different than that church doing a special event.
Well, that was
if they wanted to
considered, that
use
was
it.
considered when it was zoned. It's a multifamily structure with a restaurant facility.
I'm speaking strictly to the traffic. It's the traffic could already exist today, whether this guy's here or not. The traffic could exist. Any of those people can do anything, and you're going to have traffic, but I don't think it's going to be every day. That's why I want to know if we limit the hours. There was some noise concerns. I mean, do we need to discuss hours of operation and not the operation is the question. Is there a common ground?
River Terrace doesn't necessarily have that limited or unlimited use.
Sure, come on. New public comment. I don't want to beat a dead horse all day. New.
With respect to the difference between the River Terrace property and where we're at across the street, it's a much more compact situation. River Terrace is set up with a very large parking lot and a commercial building that is several hundred yards, or I'm sorry, not several hundred yards, probably 100 yards away from the street. The church is right on the street and right on just directly across the street from the property owners, from the residences. And so I don't think we're talking apples and apples here. When the River Terrace has an event, they're equipped to handle it. I don't believe that the church, sited as it is in that neighborhood, is equipped to handle it, and it most certainly will affect property values. I'm sorry, traffic patterns. And if those traffic patterns are affected, and if it becomes an annoyance, which I believe that it might, in much the same way that it is over on A&M, because the fact is that the streets where we are not particularly wide. They're not much wider than they are over on A&M. Yes, it's a different setup, but I don't think we're talking apples and apples here. I think we've got two different setups, but one isn't necessarily better than the other for this type of traffic. And so to your point about should we be talking about hours of operation and not about traffic patterns, I believe we have to talk about both. And I'm not looking to shut the church down here today. Somebody mentioned possibly tabling this and taking it up at another time after maybe there's been some more information gathered here. I'd be in favor of that rather than just saying no at this point. But I'd sure like to hear a lot more because I'm not hearing enough to tell me how this is how we're going to be affected.
River Terrace is only open 3 hours a day, 11 to 2.
It's not our concern right now either.
Yeah, I mean, really, they don't have
As
anything
far
to do with the kids.
as far as the parking goes, it is in the lease with Texas Tumbleweed, the parking allotments that they have, and part of the lease stipulates that they have to keep their patrons inside of those particular parking spots, that we're not going to allow traffic or parking to overflow into the streets, those kinds of things, which is a problem with River Terrace right now. That's the first thing. The second thing that I'd like to bring up is not only is River Terrace an example, there's a daycare that's down Austin Street that every morning congests that street. I just think that we, on multiple different areas, have allowed in our city what our church is requesting, and it seems to me like we want to say that we're not taking into consideration that it's a church asking, but
we're not.
But the ongoing conversation is around that. So you guys have, at some point, the city has granted River Terrace special use permits. You've allowed daycare into the exact same neighborhood. I would just really question why we wouldn't approve as a city us doing that, just because it's a church.
So I would have liked, if I had it my way, I would have liked for a representative of the business that was going to potentially lease this space to be here to answer some questions. I think they probably could have provided more information for a very thorough review of what their ideas are and what their hours are, right? Everyone is speculating what they're going to do. I find it a little disconcerting that they weren't here. I mean, if this is my business up, I would definitely be here. So I'm of the opinion that we have further discussion and table this, Jeff. I just think we need a lot more information about what's going to go. Because look, if we're just going to be a hard no, I just don't think we have enough information to be a hard no. It's not fair to anyone.
But it can go to the city council to be
Oh, it can.
Would it be able, would you be able to visit with the neighbors, between the church and the business and the neighbors, and set up some meetings at that time so you can discuss things and get everyone on the same page, and then it would come back to us?
I don't know that I can commit to you that I'll get everybody on the same page,
No.
but I'm certainly willing to have
Attempt.
meetings and have
Attempt to.
conversation to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would behoove everybody to get a little bit more information. It would certainly behoove the business owner to be involved in that process. The questions aren't for the church. The meeting was made about the church. It has to do with what's going to be going on inside it, the business. So we need to get the input of those folks. before we make
I
a
would
decision.
like to make the motion to deny the special
I
use
haven't called, okay,
request.
I'll call for one in just a second. So if it is at all possible to, unless we get a motion passed today, if it's at all possible to get some more information together, maybe have some meetings with some of your neighbors. I don't know. I feel like as a church, it might be a good idea. So with that, I'm going to close public comment. Does anybody have any other comments they'd like to make up here? With that, I'll entertain a motion if anybody would like to make one.
I'd like to make the motion to deny the special use request.
There is a motion to deny the special use request by Mr. Brooks,
I'll second.
and there is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
What a conundrum. 2-2.
It fails for a lack of a
Motion fails for lack of a majority vote.
Another motion would be in order either to approve or to table.
Correct. So
I make a motion to table.
I have a second motion to table this until further notice. Do you want to do next meeting? Do you want to do two
I would
meetings?
like to do next meeting.
I have a motion on the floor to table this conversation for the next meeting. That would be October. Do I have a second? All right, the motion fails for lack of a second. This is what we call a predicament.
So without any further motions, this would go to the city council. And just for those in the audience, this, due to the timing, this is scheduled for tomorrow's city council meeting. It would go to them with no recommendation from this board. We would let them know about the vote, that it was a 2-2, and that also a vote to table did not pass. And so we will just pass that on to them, but it will be heard by city council tomorrow.
All right.
I have a question for you. So, John, was this already scheduled to be on city council tomorrow? With
Yes.
the passing or?
No, had you tabled it, we would have
No.
told council tomorrow
Had
it's
we
tabled.
passed it, it would go
Yes,
to city council tomorrow?
yes.
Okay,
Had you
that's
passed
unusual.
it or outright
Okay.
denied it. It is unusual. It was just the timing of this one worked out that way. We normally wouldn't, it normally wouldn't work that way.
Good.
Yes, it's 8:30 in this room tomorrow.
Tomorrow, 8:30 in this room. Thank you. Where are we? Item 5?
Let me get.
Conditional uses? Am I right? The Planning Commission has final authority for approval. Appeals may be directed to the City Council. Item B, CU 19-12 Shannon, West Texas Memorial Hospital. Public hearing and consideration of a request for approval of a conditional use to allow a hospital in the General Commercial Zoning District located at 3177 Appaloosa. Good morning.
Shelley Pascal, planner. This is a conditional use requested by Shannon to allow for a hospital. It is 14.942 acres. It is currently vacant. It is at the intersection of Appaloosa Trail and FM 2288. It is in District 6 in Billy DeWitt and is within the Bluffs neighborhood. The fluke does call for it to be neighborhood, and it is currently zoned general commercial. Here's a couple of photos of the subject property. These are both along 2288. This is the church just south of the subject property, and this is looking just a different angle of the southern portion of the subject property. This is an example of the residence within the Rio Concho West, which is directly across Appaloosa Trail. This is a concept plan that has been provided to staff, kind of looking what they're proposing within this area. And just to kind of place you, 2288's further out here, and this is the church, so that you can kind of know where. This is a rendering also of the proposed new hospital. Rationale for approval. Excuse me. The site plan for the property currently does not illustrate fencing, signage, sidewalks, or landscape. And that is part of staff's recommendation, or conditions part of the recommendation. We do, currently the zoning ordinance does not allow hospitals in any zoning by right. The proposed hospital could be less of an impact on the surrounding single-family uses than other businesses already allowed in CG. A new hospital in this area will both benefit this area and the community as a whole. Requiring fencing, landscaping, and setbacks can provide more of a suitable buffer for the adjoining single-family residential uses in this area. We do not believe that it'll have an effect on the natural environment. Hospitals do provide a community with need. It provides a benefit to the community as a whole. It will create and provide more jobs to San Angelo. And it'll be a continuation of the commercial development along Sherwood Way and FM 2288. And the traffic does have direct access to Appaloosa Trail, which is a minor collector, which directly connects into 2288, which is an arterial. We did receive, or we sent out 5 notifications. We received 1 in favor and 0 in opposition. Staff, we are recommend approval of this conditional use subject to 5 conditions. One of the conditions is to submit a detailed site plan to be approved by the planning director. Submit a detailed landscape plan for the entire site to be approved by the planning director. This plan must include screening to screen the service yard from the adjacent residential homes. This screening and buffer could be a combination of fencing and or landscaping. Submit a site plan illustrating sidewalks along Appaloosa Trail. Also, all new lighting on the premises must be shielded downward. And all trash can dumpsters must have a minimum of 6-foot privacy fence on 3 sides of the dumpster. Any questions?
Okay. Do y'all have any questions for staff? None? So explain to me the plan for landscape and things of that nature.
We are requiring that they give us a detailed site plan of landscaping on the property, and which they do plan on, providing that, and similar to other landscapings I've stated that
At the time of building permit.
at the time of building permit.
Do I have any public comment on this case? That was easy. Good morning. Please come up, state your name.
I'm Dale Droll with Shannon Medical Center, and really I'm just here to see if y'all have any questions for us at this time.
No, we don't. I think that the way that area is growing, especially by Appaloosa and over, I think this fits what's going on out there, and it looks good to us.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'm going to one more. Here we go. Come on up.
Yes, I'm Bob Brewer. I'm the executive director of Rio Concho, and I would just like for him to show a couple of those slides and explain on the entryway as we go in there and where that clears from 2288 coming into the property.
Probably with the 22, with
Or maybe the aerial.
Yeah.
What exactly are we looking for? The entranceway that you're proposing versus the entranceway to Rio Concho?
So, can I draw on it, or is it? So on the screen, as far as off the highway, the property or the building would set right in this area. So we would be coming off of this main driveway into that on Appaloosa. Sorry, my finger's sticking. And then there will be an entrance here and another entrance here into the property, and then you'd have circulation around the building, and the face of the building would be facing Appaloosa. And if you go to one of our site plans, you'll kind of see that, keep going, right there. It's the same thing you'll see off Appaloosa. This is the one entrance and another. And as they said, there's a church that sits right here. So most of our circulation and parking will be on the sides of the building or in the back with the building facing Appaloosa.
What's gonna happen to the area you're not developing yet?
I know that we have to bring all the utilities there. It could be developed in the future for additional physician offices or something, but at this time we don't have any plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have any further public comment? All right, I'm going to close public comment, and I will entertain a motion on this case.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
All right, I have a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
And I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 5-0. Oh, yeah, we're back. 5-0. All right, moving on down the road. Right-of-way abandonments. The city council has final authority for approval of right-of-way abandonments. Item A, alley right-of-way abandonment. I'm going to need help on that one. I'm not even going to try that
The
one.
name of the person.
Help me with the
Sherry.
name. All right.
I have.
That one. A request
The
to
applicant.
approve the abandonment of approximately 3,800 square feet of a north-south alley within Block 30 of the Angelo Heights addition located north of the intersection of Cottonwood and Shiloh. Good morning.
Almost afternoon. The applicant is proposing, as you've indicated, to ask for abandonment of the north-south alley that is located in the Block 30. The extension of that alley, or the original part of that alley, was abandoned in 2012 and became part of the development on both sides where those homes were built. This is in District 4. It is Lucy Gonzalez's district, And the area is called the Central Neighborhood. The future land use has this as a neighborhood with just the bottom area being a neighborhood center or a small commercial. The present zoning, as you can see, is 0 lot line twin homes. Immediately adjacent is single-family residential. On the other side of the river is also single-family residential, and then there's multifamily to the south. And this shows the existing piece of property, and on the right is where the alley would be if the alley was developed. The one thing that I want to bring your attention to is this is Cottonwood Road. Their property really actually, the Cottonwood Road ends back here, even though it's platted. As you can see, it drops off significantly. That's quite a drop down to the river. And this property does not actually have frontage on Cottonwood Road. And that point will come up as we move on forward. This is another picture of the property, and you can see standing on that point of the property looking out, you can see how quickly it drops off. So only about 1/3 of the property is developed. The rest of it quickly drops off and is part of the floodplain for the river. Staff is recommending approval of the vacation of this alley or abandonment of this alley. There's some evidence that in the east-west alley has been used sporadically, but it is definitely not used for access other than high school parking, if you will, or going out to look at the river. There's no evidence at this time that we could find of any public or private utilities in the alley, and there is no evidence that there would be a negative impact if that was vacated. The availability of the land, once combined with additional property that the owner owns to the east, would make this area far more easily developable. And as I indicated, staff is recommending approval of the request to abandon the alley, subject to 3 conditions of approval. Per the Code of Ordinances, Section A 9.008, payment per the assessed formula outlined in the fee schedule shall be remitted for all of the abandoned alley right-of-way should the vacation and abandonment be approved. In this case, all of the surrounding property is owned by the one person, and that is the applicant. He and his wife do own the property. And then verification of the recordation of the quitclaim or deeds officially abandoning the city's claim to the entirety of the alley shall be provided. And third, and probably most important that we want to bring forward, is to submit and obtain approval and official record of a subdivision replat absorbing all of that abandoned right-of-way into the adjacent lot, and a reconfigurations of the lots that are platted, and then hopefully connecting it to the property that the applicant owns to the east, because this property does not have any frontage on a street, and the only primary access to the property is either off of Hickory Street or further to the east, Elm Street. And as I indicated, meeting all of the requirements of the land development and subdivision ordinance within 18 months is what we're asking on the replat, but we are encouraging them to include all of their property as they're replatting for development because of the access issue. Are there any questions?
Any questions? We do not, thank you. Do I have any comment? All right, I will close public comment and entertain a motion.
Approve as written.
Have a motion to approve? And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. Moving on to text amendments. The City Council has final authority for approval of text amendments. Item A, consideration of a text amendment to the City of San Angelo zoning ordinance, Section 501F, additional standards for manufactured homes in the RS1, RS2, or the R&E zoning district.
A couple years back, the state of Texas did adopt some regulation change to manufactured home, mobile home, and industrial housing. Shortly thereafter, in September, we corrected our zoning ordinance to match what we thought the state of Texas had in fact passed. In looking more closely at what the state had done, the state upheld the city's right to land that has not had any mobile homes or manufactured homes on them for the city to set any criteria that it does. They are supportive of that. However, if you are in an area where there is an existing mobile home or an existing manufactured home, the state had different rules, and we had not incorporated that to what we had proposed back in September of 2017. What we're proposing now is to correct that problem. And there are two very distinctive points. And if you look at Exhibit A that is part of the submittal that you had originally, I'll go over them very quickly. The first is, if it in fact is a mobile home by definition, mobile homes are not allowed anymore anywhere, and if a person has a mobile home and they want to replace that with a manufactured home, all they really are going to have to do is come in and get a permit for the placement and meet all of the setback requirements, et cetera. They're not going to have to go through anything else that the city did have in place. The second one is, if there's an existing manufactured home on a lot and somebody wants to replace that manufactured home within a year of it being removed or replace it directly, they would have to go through our present requirement of meeting the median taxable value within the 500 area. But right now, our ordinance requires that they also go through a special permit process through both the Planning Commission and City Council, and they would not have to do that any longer. We feel that that is in keeping with what the state law changes were, and we're proposing to move forward on that. Are there any questions? Discussion?
Y'all have any questions? No? I think we're good.
Okay.
We need public comment on text amendments? Do we need public comment on text amendments?
Yes.
Oh, we do? Oh,
Not sure you're going to get any.
I think it's all, do we have any staff comment? No. We'll close public comment, and if anybody doesn't have any questions, I'll end it.
I will point out that what we're proposing to you is substantively what will go to City Council. We want to continue to look at this to make sure we have the wording correctly. So we'll be getting with our legal staff again to make sure that all the wording is 100% in line with the state law. So there's a chance some of this could change slightly. If any of that results in a substantive change, we'll bring it back to you all before council. But I just wanted to let you know, normally what we take to council is exactly word for word what you see. If you are comfortable with that, we'll move forward. Again, if it results in any substantive change, we'll bring it back to you.
Well, there just used to be a lot of discussion about the phrase manufactured home, right? And then it would kind of open up a whole conversation about what is and isn't. So it's just as long as it's clear that when we say that.
Yeah, there is a true definition now.
Yeah. Well, good. As long as it's clear and we don't have to, I mean, we've had some pretty good discussions up here about the do's and don'ts. All right, well, thank you.
Make a motion?
We need to make a motion.
Make a motion to accept the text amendment. As presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. 5-0. Director's report.
Just wanted to point out a couple of things that you all had recommended in past months that have gone to City Council. You had looked at the expansion of the Central Business District. That was approved by the council. You also had looked at those subdivision ordinance amendments that I think you guys saw 4 or 5 times. Finally came up with something I think that everybody was comfortable with, and that was also approved by City Council. And then the River Corridor amendments that we'd looked at changing from a river corridor to creating a cultural district and downtown district. That was approved on first reading by council, and they'll be looking at it tomorrow for final approval. That's all I had.
All right. Future meeting announcements. When's our, what are we, the 20, Monday?
October
we're in October
21st.
already? Lord.
October 21st.
Yeah, October 21st, tentatively scheduled, right? So I guess we're good to go. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.